Located at the Beagle Channel, Ushuaia is Argentina's most southern city and, most importantly, the gateway to Antarctica. Here, the Tierra del Fuego National Park offers a variety of attractions, including wildlife and the Tren del Fin del Mundo. And as the train enters the platform, we start to prepare for departure. As the ship leaves port, we leave the beautiful landscape of Patagonia behind and set off to a very special adventure aboard the G expedition. On our first day at sea, as we make our way to the Falkland Islands, hundreds of seabirds decide to join us on our journey. Most of them black-browed albatross and giant petrels. On Saunders Island, at the west end of the Falklands, we spot our first Gen 2 penguins and a few of the Magellanic variety. Some penguins are still attached to their nests from last breeding season. But as always with nature, not all chicks could make it, but instead they drive the circle of life. Meanwhile, these king penguins protect their chicks in the hope they don't meet the same fate. Though often, quarrels between neighbors are inevitable. Not far from the quarrelsome king penguins, little black-browed albatross chicks rest on top of their nests. A few paces further, a colony of king cormorants, or imperial shags, cause a little commotion. These lonely rockhopper penguins seem to be the last stragglers of an already abandoned colony. In the afternoon, the expedition team takes us to West Point, where we get an even closer look at a colony of rockhoppers and black-browed albatross. Black-browed albatross live for 30 years or more and have a deep connection to their colony of birth. Together with their generally lifelong partners, they return to these places every year. They build their nests amidst the tussock grass out of mud and guano. Both parents take care of feeding their offspring. This little chick certainly shows a strong appetite. On the edge of the colony, turkey vultures lie in wait to prey on chicks, while this little one finally got its serving. These black-browed albatross and many other species of marine birds are endangered through human activities, especially ocean plastic and longline fishing. In the evening, thousands of sooty shearwaters return to their nests on Kidney Island. A spectacular finish for a day spent in and around Stanley. On our way to South Georgia, we come by the aptly named Shag Rocks. Where we also meet a group of playful seals. And our first whales. Finally, we arrive at Salisbury Plain, where one of the largest king penguin colonies on South Georgia resides. Immediately after going ashore, we are surrounded by penguins and fur seals. King penguins feed on small fish, squid and krill. But getting to their hunting grounds can be quite challenging at times. King penguins need a lot of time to raise their offspring. About 12 to 14 months pass until a chick is fully developed. Here at Salisbury Plain, there live about 60,000 pairs or more of breeding penguins. These little fellows are Antarctic fur seals. Just like their neighbors, they feed on krill, fish and squid. They were nearly extinct by the sealing industry in the 19th century due to the high demand for their fur. However, by now the population has recovered to several million, 95% of which are believed to have their breeding grounds on South Georgia. And by now, you've probably noticed this beautiful penguin call. To find the chicks, the parents are able to identify the chicks' individual call among the tens of thousands others nearby. These fur seal pups can get really inquisitive, wanting to have a close-up look at their visitors. Somehow, a lonely Gentoo has ended up amongst the chaos. Clumsy as they may seem on land, once they get past the breaking waves into the open water, they are incredibly nimble. In the afternoon, the sky clears up at Pryon Island, and we are rewarded with a picturesque scenery. South Georgia provides ample opportunities to observe its wildlife in different circumstances, such as here at Fortuna Bay. As we keep a respectful distance, these king penguins show no sign of disturbance at all. They, on the other hand, do not respect our own private space whatsoever. This penguin reaffirms its connection with its partner and fends off any potential rivals that try to impress their mate. Finally, the intruder is on its way, probably looking for a better opportunity. Meanwhile, the fur seals lazily go about their day. Some are nursing their pups, while others are just having a stretch. Or keep a watchful eye on their surroundings. As we approach our upcoming destinations, we delve deep into the history of South Georgia and the whole Antarctic region. At the heart of this particular bay lie the abandoned remains of Stromness, where on the 20th of May 1916 Sir Ernest Shackleton, after a 36-hour march from King Haakon Bay across South Georgia, finally found salvation. Around the areas of Stromness and Grytviken, we explore two closely intertwined strands of history, the heroic age of Antarctic exploration and the rapid advancement of the Antarctic whaling industry. Many locations around South Georgia and Antarctica bear the names of important figures of these past times. Ross, Scott, Amundsen certainly being some of the most prominent. One name in particular plays a major role in the history of Grytviken, Carl A. Larsen. Larsen was an experienced explorer after leading a few expeditions to Antarctica around the beginning of the 20th century. At that time, the whaling industry in the Northern Hemisphere was declining, as the stocks of northern right whales had already been brought to the brink of extinction. The right whales were the prevalent species to be hunted, being curious, slow, and staying at the surface for extended periods near the shore, they were considered the right whale to hunt. Larsen, on his expeditions, couldn't believe the amount of right whales he saw around South Georgia. So, in 1904, he established a settlement of Grytviken, where he built a whaling station from scratch that should soon produce over 70% of the world's whale oil. With time came technological advancement. Stronger engines and more deadly harpoons allowed the whalers to hunt more elusive types of whales. Once the most profitable species had been hunted to a point of great scarcity, the next species was hunted until it too was very rare, and so on. Humpback, blue, fin, sei, sperm, minke whales, all of them were hunted consecutively in large quantities, up until as late as the 1990s. But as despicable as the whaling industry may seem from today's point of view, it has substantially driven the global economy and technology and brought prosperity to those involved, including the station workers, most of whom were proud of their hard work. Nowadays, the museum at Grytviken keeps the remains of the whaling station in safe condition, as a reminder of these past times, while the local wildlife reclaims its territory between rusting metal and withering whale bones. Before leaving Grytviken behind, we pay tribute here at the place of his passing in 1922 to Sir Ernest Shackleton, who died doing what he knew best in preparation for another expedition. Meanwhile, back in 1914, Shackleton left Grytviken on December 5th toward the Weddell Sea. And so do we, but not without first enjoying more of the wonders that South Georgia has to offer. Our next stop brings us to St. Andrews Bay. This wide open area is home to a truly vast colony. Look at you, so elegantly presenting your full black suit. A genetic curiosity called melanism results in an overproduction of black pigment cells that color the skin and feathers. Although quite a rare genetic mutation, sightings like this can be made more frequently here on South Georgia due to the extraordinarily populous colonies of penguins and seals. This colony at St. Andrews Bay in particular is the largest on the island. We estimate there might be even more than 500,000 individuals down there. Early next morning, we go ashore at Gold Harbor, where we encounter a group of adolescent elephant seals. These kings might be wondering what's going on, while the young males play at their games. In fact, they are rehearsing for adulthood, when in a few years' time they will return here to earn, in vicious battle, the title of Beachmaster. Only the Beachmaster will be able to reproduce when the females get ready, and only 10% of elephant seals ever become a Beachmaster. The South Georgia pipit is a bird only found on this island, and it is the only songbird in the Antarctic region. The introduction of rats by humans has posed a dire threat to it, as to many other animals on the island. Only in 2018, through the constant effort of the rat eradication program, could South Georgia once again be declared rat-free. And here, maybe, for the first time ever, we witness a Gen 2 beachmastering over a group of kings. At this time of the year, many penguins go through what is called a catastrophic molt, where they replace all their feathers with new, pristine ones in a very short time. Right now, they truly look miserable, all itchy and scratchy. During this, they lose their waterproof layer and are bound to stay on land, conserving as much energy as possible. And as they go through their molt, they leave their feathers all over the place. So this seal doesn't seem to mind. Here, at Cooper Bay, will be the last time on South Georgia that we leave our ship on the Zodiacs to explore the coastal wildlife for a final time. But this is also a first-timer, as we spot two new species of penguins, macaronis and chinstraps. Macaronis are thought to be the most numerous penguins on Earth. And they are one of 6 types of crested penguins, sporting a fabulously golden crown. Chin straps, on the other hand, wear their own kind of decoration around the neck. And again, we are fortunate and spot 3 more individuals with pigment mutations, 2 leucistic fur seals. And 1 giant petrel. On our transition across the Scotia Sea toward the Antarctic Peninsula, we make several impressive sightings. This tabular iceberg suddenly appears on our path. Its size is about 5 by 5 kilometers. We also spot 3 southern right whales, a tremendous sight, considering that their population is still very low. The iceberg is an enormous sight, which would still be dwarfed immensely by the famous A68, which is now also drifting around these waters. Our first day at the Antarctic Peninsula is spent around Elephant Island. First, we explore a large chinstrap colony on nearby Gibbs Island. Later, we reposition to Elephant Island and experience a mystic moment at Point Wild. Here, in 1916, the men of the Endurance spent 4.5 months waiting for rescue, as Shackleton, with 5 of his men, traversed the rough waters of the Scotia Sea to South Georgia. And while our hearts are on fire as we recount the story of Shackleton, we even spot a glimpse of the monument that stands in reverence for these brave men. Now, the moment we have been waiting for has finally come. As we peek out of the window today at Brown Bluff, we are finally surrounded by ice wherever we look. And today, we get our first impressions of the differences between Antarctica and South Georgia. Even though they are still young chicks, these Gen 2s already follow their instincts and practice their courtship rituals. While South Georgia spotted an overwhelming amount of wildlife, here we get to experience much more personal encounters. As soon as we sit down, The Gentoo's curiosity gets the best of them. And also penguins sometimes get the zoomies. The snowy sheathbill can be frequently seen among penguin colonies. Opportunistic omnivores such as they feed on almost anything they can get their beaks on. From fresh penguin eggs to carcasses and food leftovers, and finally, even including the penguin's guano. On the way back to the ship, we have the fortune to encounter some leopard seals. Eagerly, this one wants to show off, getting in and out of the water repeatedly. On their ice sheets, they lie in wait for an opportunity to catch an unexperienced penguin off guard. At this time of the year, when the penguin chicks are still learning their ways around the water, they pose an attractive alternative to the sea leopard's diet of krill, squid, and fish. Which is exactly what we're able to observe the next day at Goodyear Island. As they pick planktonic food particles from the surface, these Wilson's storm petrels seem to be walking on the water, while the leopard seal is tearing apart a penguin. A sight not for the faint of heart. This migration of young penguins in and out of the water is exactly what the leopard seals are looking for. Only those penguins who practiced enough in the shallow pools on land stand a chance. This chase we observe here is how the parents make their chicks fit for survival. They need to work for their food, and strong competition between siblings is enforced. The parent even goes as far as to drag their chicks into the water to get them accustomed to the wet element. Finally, it's feeding time. The chick's hungry and wants to be fed again. And again. Those chicks, however, that are not strong enough for the survival of the fittest will end up as food for the leopard seals or the skuas. The next morning surprises us with sunny, calm weather. At Cierva Cove, we go for a zodiac exploration among the ice. And we even haul our own piece of glacier on deck. Later, at Charlotte Bay, we ditch a landing in favor of numerous humpback whales that scurry these waters. We even spot some breaching humpbacks, a truly impressive sight. The next day, we pay a short visit to Port Lockroy, the penguin post office. While we stock up on souvenirs and post our mail, we also explore the museum, full of memorabilia of old times. Afterwards, we traverse the Neumayer Channel and the Gerlache Strait toward a place called Paradise Bay. And with the sun shining up ahead, this is indeed an Antarctic paradise. While they relax on their ice sheets, we can get real close to the crab-eater, waddell, and leopard seals around the bay. At the Argentinian base Brown, we observe the nest-building habits of the gentoos. Stone by stone they build their nests. But they have to keep a keen eye on their real estate, as other pebbles are free game. Catching the morning light, we reposition to Neko Harbor, our final destination on the Antarctic Peninsula. After a short hike up to a vantage point, a chunk of glacier carves off. And down below, the penguin chicks are getting a last farewell. And as we make our way to the Drake Passage, fortune strikes again, and we spot a group of orca, killer whales. With 2 days of rough seas ahead of us, we look at the horizon in the distance, where we're headed, home. Alas, all things need to come to an end.